Did they have his DNA or something? Good boy. Good boy. What a coward. So today we are going to check out a video called How the SEAL Team Took Down Osama Bin Laden. I don't know why it was so hard for me to say those words. This video is on one of my favorite channels in the whole world. It's the Infographics channel. They are smart. They do amazing animation. We love their channel. You can check out the original video in the description box below. Previously on this channel, I reacted to a video called The Night the USA Killed Osama Bin Laden, and that was interesting because it was more about people's response to what happened. But today we're going to be looking at like exactly how they did it. Very exciting. I mean, I don't like to relish in anyone's death, but also Hitler, Osama Bin Laden, anyone who hurts children or animals. I have a huge surprise. So right now, subscribing to this channel and leaving a thumbs up and commenting is completely free. Honestly, please engage, because I have an adult audience and adults don't engage as much as children, and children drive the algorithm because they engage. So keep enjoying content for grown-ups. Leave the like and the share and the subscribe. I'm actually really interested in this. I love thinking about strategy, so here we go.
For almost 10 years, the United States had been tirelessly searching for one man, Osama bin Laden, the terrorist mastermind behind the September 11th attacks that killed almost 3,000 Americans and triggered a war that was still raging today. May 2nd, 2011. While the United States had toppled the Taliban, the government that was sheltering bin Laden at the time of the attacks, they...
Sorry, just gonna stop it there, but can you believe that was 2011? We're 2023 right now. Maybe you're watching this in the future, but right now when I'm filming this, it's 2023. That's so long ago.
had never been able to capture or kill the man. That was about to change. The CIA had been searching for bin Laden's
Great
secret
animation.
base for years with no luck. He had managed to escape from Afghanistan, which was under U.S. occupation, and travel to the neighboring country of Pakistan. But in the mountains, rural regions of Pakistan, with little government oversight, it was easy for him to stay under the radar. The government had been looking for leads for years, but finally got their break in 2010, when their leads led them to a compound in Abbottabad. They began taking surveillance footage of the compound and determining the best way to breach it. What followed was one of the trickiest intelligence gathering operations in U.S. history. The compound was heavily guarded and in enemy territory. The U.S. had to rely heavily on local help to gather intelligence, and over a period of months they spied on the 3-story building. They learned every detail about the building, but a lot was still missing. For one thing, the infamous terror leader was incredibly secretive, so secretive that they were never able to capture an image of him coming in or out of the building.
Does Chewie think I was telling him to go away? No, baby, you stay. Oh, no. You're okay. You can lay down. Lay down. Okay, you just sit on top of the video we're reacting to then.
Everything was still circumstantial, but after an extended period of time, they were able to conclude that this was where Osama bin Laden was. Now it was time to take action.
They
It
must
was
have had a
April
guy on the
29th
inside.
When President Obama was briefed on the details of the operation, many within his security team were skeptical about the operation. After all, if it went wrong, top U.S. troops would either be killed or remain trapped behind enemy lines. Not only would this be a disastrous loss of life, but it would potentially expose many of the U.S.'s biggest secrets if they were interrogated and forced to reveal classified info.
And also, like, it's a terroristic act in itself, in a way, you know, from the perspective of the other side. It could instigate more war, like further retaliatory actions.
With the doubts that bin Laden truly was in the compound, many didn't feel it was worth the risk. Ultimately, the president disagreed, and he gave the okay to the operation that would become Operation Neptune Spear. The roughly 24 Navy SEALs sent on the mission would temporarily be transferred to the control of the CIA, so it would technically not be a military mission and would not be classified as an act of war. These were going to be some of the most critical minutes in the U.S.'s modern history, and for the men on the ground, every single minute would count. While the roughly 24 SEALs were the ones who would breach the compound, there were 79 commandos and a dog involved in the raid. The dog, a Belgian Malinois named Cairo, was there to alert the SEALs to any sudden activity, including the Pakistani military approaching the compound or anyone trying to escape. The core team was backed up by a dog handler, interpreters, pilots, intelligence agents, and tech experts who would make it all possible. But
We love doggos. Doggos are the best. I know I'm a bad person for being like, I know there are humans there and like I'm, you know, they're poor partners and families back home, but the dog, I hope the dog makes it out of it. I hope they tell us.
Success or failure of the mission would hinge on the men entering the compound, and one wrong move.
Was it only men? No women?
3:30 a.m., give or take. 2 helicopters descend on the Abbottabad compound. while the other helicopters stand by in case they're needed. These two will carry out the primary mission. The SEALs had successfully weathered a crash landing without being detected. The helicopter was secure against the compound walls, and the other helicopter had landed safely outside the compound. The rest of the team was scaling the walls, and the whole team was reunited. The next step was breaching the compound, and that's where the SEALs explosives team came in.
How'd they get the dog over the wall?
Quickly and hit people inside with shock and awe. Outside preparation was key, but once they were inside, every second would count. 10 years of searching had come down to this. 3:33 a.m. To get through the security, the SEALs used portable explosives to blow open the doors of the compound's guest house one by one. They breached the compound and began storming up the stairs. The first room they encountered on the first floor contained 2 adult males, but neither was Osama bin Laden. They were detained, but they weren't the target. More disturbing, every floor seemed to contain small groups of children. This wasn't just a terrorist compound, it was home where the terrorists kept their families, regardless of the danger they were putting them in. And with every floor the SEALs ascended, the danger would escalate. 3:35. What happened next? Reports of that may vary. As they reached the second floor, they encountered more resistance. This is where bin Laden's courier, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, was found, and SEAL Mark Owen would controversially write a book on the firefight. He claimed that al-Kuwaiti was armed and fired on the SEALs. While one SEAL was lightly injured, they returned fire and killed the evil courier. However, intelligence sources later said that the SEALs were able to get the drop on the man after cutting power to the compound and eliminated him without him fighting back. What was clear is that they still hadn't encountered the man himself. 3:37. It was time to ascend once again, and the resistance became fiercer the further the SEALs headed into the house. They'd encountered the courier, as well as his brother and wife, and all enemies had either been killed or captured. As they ascended the staircase, they encountered another enemy, and this one provided a glimmer of hope. After the al-Qaeda soldier was killed, the SEALs identified him as a son of Osama bin Laden, one of the terror leader's many progenies who followed in his footsteps. And if he was there, odds were good his father wasn't far away. 3:39. There was only one floor left to be breached, the third, and the SEALs were steeling themselves for yet another disappointment. This was clearly a high-level al-Qaeda compound, but bin Laden had been notorious for staying one step ahead of his pursuers, and he could be far away by now. But as they breached the third floor, it became clear this time was different. In the third floor's main room was Osama bin Laden, seemingly unarmed and wearing the loose-fitting tunic he was usually seen wearing in his many propaganda videos.
It wasn't a cave?
The SEALs got their first glimpse of him as he stuck his head out of the bedroom, and they didn't miss their opportunity. They immediately fired, wounding him. However, he was able to retreat back into the bedroom, and the SEALs pursued. The room was revealed to contain many of bin Laden's female relatives, including several of his wives. One approached the SEALs as if she were charging, and the SEALs quickly shot her to wound, grabbing her and advancing further toward the terror leader. Osama bin Laden had nowhere left to run, and America's most skilled soldiers were right outside his door. What happens next? Reports vary. Matt Bissonnette, one of the SEALs on site, claims that bin Laden had been mortally wounded by the initial shots as they approached. His wives were trying to protect him, and the SEALs were forced to act as any one of them could have an explosive device. But when they pushed past them, they found bin Laden on the ground, mortally wounded, as he moved.
Reports vary. Does anybody else find that like a little sus? Like you're like, it probably didn't happen as heroically or whatever as you guys say, if reports vary. Just a thought.
They fired multiple shots and neutralized the terror leader for good. But another SEAL had a very different story. Robert J. O'Neill would become one of the first SEALs to identify himself as one of the men on the mission and had a much more dramatic recollection of the events. In his retelling, Osama bin Laden might have been wounded, but he was far from neutralized. In fact, he was strong enough to grab one of the women in the room and hide behind her, using her as a
What a coward!
As bin Laden pushed the hapless woman toward the SEALs, O'Neill quickly fired 2 shots directly into bin Laden's forehead and killed him. Which report was accurate? The Navy after-action report favors Bissonnette's retelling. And just like that, one of the most notorious enemies of the United States was no more. The SEAL team radioed back, "Forgotten country, Geronimo, Geronimo, Geronimo," officially confirming that the enemy had been killed in action. The entire affair had taken less than 15 minutes from landing to the elimination of Osama bin Laden,
that's so
one of the
fast.
most efficient operations in U.S. military history, and had been completed without a single death or serious injury to the entire Navy SEAL team. Watching from the Situation Room, President Obama
Including
uttered
the dog?
words the entire White House team had been waiting to hear. "We got him." Now it was time to deal with the aftermath. 7:01. Back at the White House, the celebration was tempered by one question. Was it really him? Bin Laden was infamous for using body doubles, and there had been multiple times where it was thought he had been killed, only for it to turn out to be a feint. so everyone waited anxiously for the results of the preliminary examinations of the corpse. And over
How would
an hour after the SEALs arrived in Afghanistan, a new report came in indicating that the notorious rogue was actually dead. This time, the
Did they have his DNA or something? How would they know? For sure.
United States had gotten their man, and the American public was about to find out. It was the evening of May 1st when word started going around that the president was going to be making a speech on TV that night. Usually, when Barack Obama made a planned speech, it was early in the evening during prime time, often to the annoyance of everyone who was trying to watch their favorite TV show. But this unplanned speech on short notice was different, and political watchers kept waiting until the president ascended the podium at less than half an hour to midnight. And as soon as he opened his mouth, people knew this was big. 11:35. Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda and a terrorist who's responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children. As the president paid tribute to the many who died in bin Laden's terror attacks, a spontaneous celebration erupted around the country. It was just short of 10 years since the September 11th terror attacks, and many Americans lived in fear of the next attack. As word got around, large groups of fans attending sports games screamed in joy. Democrats exulted in the biggest foreign policy win of the Obama presidency, and Republicans celebrated the end of an enemy while wondering if they should even bother running against him next year. And there was only one thing left to do. 12:59. It was a little over an hour after President Obama's speech, and the troops had one major piece of business left to attend to.
The dog.
What to do with Osama bin Laden's body. The terror leader had been fully tested and examined, and they were sure he was their guy. He had been checked for any vital intel, and the body had no more secrets to give up. The only thing left to do was dispose of the body, but there was one problem with that. No one wanted him. Bin Laden was wanted in just about every country on the planet, and even countries where he had sought refuge, Pakistan and Afghanistan,
I never thought of this.
Considered him an outlaw. No country would want to give him a grave, because it would be a massive target for radical activity. No one wants to have an Al-Qaeda pilgrimage in your country every year, so why not just cremate his body and be done with it? Cremation is against Islamic tradition, and as hated as the terror leader was, the government still wanted to respect his faith. No need to anger his followers any more than they already were, given that their leader had just been eliminated. Fortunately, there was an alternative. Bin Laden's body was loaded onto the aircraft carrier Carl Vinson, and the U.S. government called the government of Saudi Arabia for approval to dispose of the body. He was a Saudi citizen, after all, and the Saudis were important allies of the U.S. government at the time. And the Saudi response was, "We don't care what you do with him, just don't make it our problem." The plan to bury Osama bin Laden at sea was approved, and the body was treated with Muslim religious rites. There was even a brief reading of Arabic religious statements, at which point the body was draped in a white shroud, placed in a bag loaded with hundreds of pounds of iron chains, and placed on a wooden board. As the board was tilted forward, bin Laden's body slipped into the sea, ensuring the terror leader would never have a grave that could be visited by loyalists or targeted by enemies.
Mad.
And now that the entire operation was over, there was only the cleanup to attend to.
That was super interesting. I never thought about what did they do with the body after the fact. What happened to the dog? Maybe editor Diane can follow up and tell us what happened with the dog. I just care. I care. Good news, the dog returned home to his Navy SEAL owner after this happened. He even had a book written about him. He now resides in the land of eternal treats, games, and toys. Shout out today to a couple of very coolie boolies. What is a bully? I don't know. First up, Tim Donnelly wants to shout out all of the healthcare workers for all of the hard work they do. So if you're one of those wonderful healthcare workers, Tim says a big thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you, Tim. Up next, we have Jason Moir, who wants to shout out my parents. He said some lovely things about me, which I'm not going to repeat here. But thank you so much, Jason. I will pass along your kind words. That's it for today. See you guys on the other side. Bye. Look at Chewie being an angel. Oh, you're just hanging out? You're just hanging out? Oh.